Father had a hard time getting used to it too. It itched a lot at first. Now he was telling stories from history. He had been a history teacher before his school was bombed. Parvana had grown up with his stories, which made her a very good student in history class. It was 1880, and the British were trying to take over our country. Did we want the British to take over? He asked Miriam. No, Miriam answered. We certainly did not. Everybody comes to Afghanistan to try to take over, but we Afghans kick them all out. We are the most welcoming, hospitable people on earth. A guest to us is a king. You girls remember that. When a guest comes to your house, he must have the best of everything. Or she, Parvana said. Father grinned at her. Or she. We Afghans do everything we can to make our guest comfortable. But if someone comes into our home or our country and acts like our enemy, then we will defend our home. Father, get on with the story, Parvana urged. She had heard it before, many times, but she wanted to hear it again. Father grinned. We must teach this child some patience, he said to Mother. Parvana didn't need to look at her mother to know she was probably thinking they needed to teach her a whole lot more than that. All right, he relented. On with the story. It was 1880. In the dust around the city of Kandahar, the Afghans were fighting the British. It was a terrible battle. Many were dead. The British were winning, and the Afghans were ready to give up. Their spirits were low. They had no strength to keep fighting. Surrender and capture were starting to look good to them. At least they could rest and maybe save their lives. Suddenly, a tiny girl, younger than Noria, burst out from one of the village houses. She ran to the front of the battle and turned to face the Afghan troops. She ripped the veil off her head, and with the hot sun streaming down on her face and her bare head, she called to the troops. "We can win this battle!" she cried. "Don't give up hope! Pick yourselves up! Let's go!" Waving her veil in the air like a battle flag, she led the troops into a final rush at the British. The British had no chance. The Afghans won the battle. The lesson here, my daughters, he looked from one to the other, is that Afghanistan has always been the home of the bravest women in the world. You are all brave women. You are all inheritors of the courage of Malali. "We can win this battle!" Miriam cried out, waving her arm around as if she were holding the flag. Mother moved the teapot out of harm's way. "How can we be brave?" Noria asked. "We can't even go outside. How can we lead men into battle? I've seen enough war. I don't want to see any more." "There are many types of battles," Father said quietly. "Including the battle with the supper dishes," Mother said. Parvana made such a face that Father started to laugh. Miriam tried to imitate it, which made Mother and Noria laugh. Ali woke up, saw everybody laughing, and he started to laugh too. The whole family was laughing when 4 Taliban soldiers burst through the door. Ali was the first to react. The slam of the door against the wall shocked him, and he screamed. Mother leapt to her feet, and in an instant, Ali and Miriam were in a corner of the room, shrieking behind her legs. Noria covered herself completely with her chador and scrunched herself into a small ball. Young women were sometimes stolen by soldiers. They were snatched from their homes, and their families never saw them again. Parvana couldn't move. She sat as if frozen at the edge of the supper cloth. The soldiers were giants, their piled-high turbans making them look even taller. 2 of the soldiers grabbed her father. The other 2 began searching the apartment, kicking the remains of dinner all over the mat. "Leave him alone!" Mother screamed. "He's done nothing wrong!" "Why did you go to England for your education?" the soldiers yelled at Father. "Afghanistan doesn't need your foreign ideas." They yanked him toward the door. "Afghanistan needs more illiterate thugs like you," Father said. One of the soldiers hit him in the face. Blood from his nose dripped onto his white shalwar kameez. Mother sprang at the soldiers, pounding them with her fists. She grabbed Father's arm and tried to pull him out of their grasp. One of the soldiers raised his rifle and whacked her on the head. She collapsed to the floor. The soldier hit her a few more times. Miriam and Ali screamed with every blow to their mother's back. Seeing her mother on the ground finally propelled Parvana into action. When the soldiers dragged her father outside, she flung her arms around his waist. As the soldiers pried her loose, she heard her father say, "Take care of the others, my Malali." Then he was gone. Parvana watched helplessly as two soldiers dragged him down the steps, his beautiful shalwar kameez ripping on the rough cement. Then they turned a corner, and she could see them no more. Inside the room, the other two soldiers were ripping open the toe shacks with knives and tossing things out of the cupboard. Father's books! At the bottom of the cupboard was a secret compartment her father had built to hide the few books that had not been destroyed in one of the bombings. Some were English books about history and literature. They were kept hidden because the Taliban burned books they didn't like. They couldn't be allowed to find Father's books. The soldiers had started at the top of the cupboard and were working their way down. Clothes, blankets, pots, everything landed on the floor. Closer and closer they came to the bottom shelf, the one with the false wall. Parvana watched in horror as the soldiers bent down to yank the things out of the bottom shelf. "Get out of my house!" she yelled. She threw herself at the soldiers with such force that they both fell to the ground. She swung at them with her fist until she was knocked aside. She heard rather than felt the thwack of their sticks on her back. She kept her head hidden in her arms until the beating stopped and the soldiers went away. Mother got off the floor and had her hands full with Ali. Noria was still curled up in a terrified ball. It was Miriam who came over to help Parvana. At the first touch of her sister's hands, Parvana flinched, thinking it was the soldiers. Miriam kept stroking her hair until Parvana realized who it was. She sat up, aching all over. She and Miriam clung to each other, trembling. She had no idea how long the family stayed like that. They remained in their spots long after Ali stopped screaming and collapsed into sleep.